Hey everyone, I'm Mike Del Preti, and you're listening to Context, the podcast where we're talking to industry leaders about what's going on in the world of real estate. Today, I'm joined by Jeremy Hofmann, CFO over at Zillow. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming into Boulder on a beautiful day here. So in a little bit, we'll be speaking to class, but now we're just having a chit-chat. So yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, first time on, so I'm excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully first of many.
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. How do you typically start your day off?
I start my day pretty much to a T with my 4-year-old. I have 3 kids. 4-year-old is the youngest. He comes in around 4:45 to 5:15 a.m. every morning, and he says, "Is it morning?" I'm like, "Yeah, buddy, it is officially morning," and my day gets going.
Awesome. Do you introduce any sort of caffeine as part of that process?
He comes in between 4:45 and 5:15, so yes, sir.
That's it. So Zillow just had an earnings announcement last week, and I'm sure that's a big deal, right? Zillow's a very large, multi-billion-dollar organization. You're talking about revenues and expenses measured in the billions of dollars. I'm sure it's a lot of work, a lot of prep. The question is, what kind of music are you listening to when you're doing that?
I have the same, what I call it, my JH hype mix that I have been listening to since I was in high school, playing like high school sports. And that carries me through to like the things in which I am most competitive about today. And earnings is one of those things.
Awesome. Do you want to reveal any of these songs?
I sure do
keeping
not.
That private?
Yeah, we're going to keep that private.
Okay. Awesome. I respect that.
Yeah.
So in terms of the actual work, if you were in a Meatloaf song and you would do anything for revenue, but you won't do that, what would that be?
Do something that harms our consumers. Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I mean, a good example of Zillow's evolution, I think, is 2017, 2018. We had just phenomenal growth in traffic the sort of preceding decade. And traffic was growing really fast on the back of mobile evolution and all that sort of stuff. And we had an insight that basically said, when a consumer clicked a button to get contacted with an agent, 1 out of every 2 people weren't getting called back. And for us, we sat there and said, well, that's going to be a problem over time. Maybe it's not tomorrow, but over time. And that was probably the core insight for us that made us evolve into what we are today, which is trying to go from be a company that is dream and shop to a company that is known for buy, sell, finance, rent. And that sort of core insight was the kind of the genesis of it. And we've done a whole bunch of things since then that we can talk about later. But that, I think, is a good example of, hey, monetization was quite strong at the time. We're going to have to go invest a bunch of resources to make sure that our lead qualification is far better than it is in 2017, 2018. That was an investment. That was a hit, but it was critical for us to build into what we now believe is like a very strong consumer experience. That would be an example where had we just kind of kept rolling, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. Does that temptation come up in the business, like where you're constantly asking yourself that question, is this good for the consumer?
I don't think it comes up. We're pretty rooted in do well for consumers. And by definition, if you're trying to effectuate real estate transactions, you are doing well for consumers. And for the way that we're structured, we're doing well for real estate agents because they are the last mile for us. And in a lot of ways, the most important part of the consumer experience for us. So that's kind of always kind of ingrained in the company. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily day in, day out, are we trading off revenue decisions. And then the other thing that we have the benefit of is we have 2 co-founders in Rich Barton and Lori Frank who have been at the company since day one, still lead the company today. And they're always looking in the horizon. And that horizon is always what's best for the consumer because the consumer always gets what they want in the end.
Let me ask you this, because this is a question I ask my students, and we had a pretty lively debate. Who do you consider your customers to be?
Good question. Yeah, really, really good question. So we are at this point, we get paid a lot of different ways, right? Like behind what feels like, it's a website that you can go and look for homes and rentals and get mortgages and all those things. There's a lot of complexity behind the scenes as to who gets paid and how we go to market depending on the business model. Our customer is the consumer. Our partner is the agent.
Ah, that's a good way to put it.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's evolved.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So how long have you been at Zillow now?
I have been at Zillow 6.5 years at this point.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that journey. Where'd you start and how'd you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I came out of college in 2008. I spent about 10 years in financial services, primarily in investment banking. And I got to a point that was a great experience for a variety of reasons, but got to a point where I'd felt like I wanted to see the world through one company's lens. As an investment banker, you're all over seeing a whole bunch of different companies, meeting really, really interesting people. But ultimately, like, you're moving from company to company and helping them solve whatever problem they're looking to solve. I thought I wanted to see the world through one company's lens. Beyond that, my wife and I are both from the East Coast and wanted to journey out west. And I've always loved consumer internet and I've always loved real estate. So Zillow fit pretty well. We did not know a soul moving to Seattle. So that was a big leap for us. But ultimately, it's been one that we've been really happy with.
That's great. And you've been CFO for about a year, almost a year.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And before that, what were you doing?
I was doing a variety of strategy and finance work. So that formed itself in overall company strategy, M&A, partnerships, investor relations, capital markets, government relations, a couple other things.
Wow. What do you do in your spare time?
I raise my 3 little kids.
Yeah.
And that's about it, Mike. And I'm here in Boulder today, which is a lovely day.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
You've had a leadership role for a while now. Can you share a meaningful experience that's really shaped your current leadership style?
Yeah. I mean, I think the stuff that comes to mind for me is I think great leaders are clear. I like the phrase, like, clear is kind. If you're clear, that can really help everybody understand what's going on. And then this concept of really being a coach, right? Like, at this stage of where I am, like, I have a great team of folks that work with me, and then their folks are underneath. But, like, my ability to get anything done with my own hands at this point is, like, less and less. So I have to be a great coach, and I'm fortunate to work with who I think are and have learned from who I think are great coaches.
What does being a great coach mean to you?
Be there, understand everything, ask the hard questions, also give people the room to run. So my framing is always to my team, I'm going to let you go as far as you want, but I'm always going to be there if you need me. Right? So, like, that to me creates a lot of autonomy, but it also creates a buffer so that if you need, I'm here. You can text me, you can call me, you can Slack me, you can email me. We do weekly one-on-ones. Like, it's really, really important. And it's really important because I want these people to succeed and I want the company to succeed. But it's also really important because I can't scale myself otherwise, right? I have 9 direct reports. Those 9 people have these number of people and so on and so forth.
Yeah. It sounds like parenting, right? You're there when they need you and you...
It is. Yeah. You have 2?
Two
and
teenage girls.
2 teenage girls. Yeah. So I'm not yet where you are. So I'll ask you for some advice after this. But yeah, it's not dissimilar in some ways.
Just here's the advice. Just weekly performance reviews. Be really clear. Give them feedback. Tell them how they're disappointing you and letting you down.
Yeah, that works really well with my 8-year-old daughter already. So
it's
no
great.
problem.
No, easy. I'm parent of the year here.
Yeah.
Can you give me an instance where you've had to make a tough call that went against the grain of conventional wisdom?
Me, myself?
Yeah. And that could be personally, professionally.
Yeah, I mean, I'll harken back. It may sound a bit trite, but that move to Seattle for me and my family was a big move. We very, very family oriented. Our entire families are on the East Coast. And my wife and I, who I've known since I was 12, we basically took a shot. We're like, hey, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, like, we've been talking about this for a long time. Let's give it a shot. And that was a big leap. I was scared. Like, there were points before we ended up, moving out there where, she had to talk me through it. Like, hey, we're doing this. You've committed to it. You're doing it. We're trying this. But that to me was like, it's against the grain for how I was raised and how all the people in my life, like, they're all still on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I told my mom that I was moving to New Zealand.
Yeah.
It took 3 times before she thought I was serious.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
It is.
And you're happy with the move?
Happy. Yeah. I love Seattle. Love the company. I think we're doing a whole bunch of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It is a company that has this pretty interesting sweet spot, at least for me, where big company brand, very well established, but a lot of startup energy. So that's this interesting hybrid that attracted me to the company in 2017 and continues to make me very excited today.
Still feel it.
Yeah.
Is there one particular piece of technology or product that you're most excited about right now?
No, no is the answer. I think it's the fact that we are, depending on the month, somewhere between 65 and 70% of all audience in the U.S., and we're single digits transaction share. Like that to me continues to be this phenomenal opportunity, and it's perplexing and it's interesting, and I don't need to tell you, but the real estate industry is quite interesting as well.
That's why I'm in real estate, because it's hard.
It's hard, like
really hard.
We work hand in hand with real estate agents. We've been doing that for a very long time. We work with new construction builders. We work with lenders. We are a lender. We work with property management companies on the rental side. Like, we sell industry software. Like, the way in which all these different industries, sub-industries of housing work are interesting in themselves. And then housing, of course, is like probably the thing that people care most about.
Yeah.
So on top of that, there's a lot of like human emotion that comes into it as well. And that plus a company that I love working at that's super vibrant and has huge ambitions, like every day I'm happy.
When you're out at social situations and people find out that you work at Zillow, how often do they start talking to you about their Zestimate?
96% of the time.
Yeah. Do people ask you to help reset their password and login issues?
Not IT help, but they do say, "Hey, like, could you touch this estimate for me?"
That kind of goes some way to just talking about how Zillow is in the zeitgeist of society here. Everybody knows the word Zestimate. Everybody knows what it is. Everybody's got a problem with it or something to say about it one way or another, right? Interesting. Speaking about that startup energy, if you were to start up a seed venture fund right now in the real estate space, what kind of companies would you want to invest in?
I think I'd be looking for companies that are looking to make things more efficient for the industry providers.
Industry providers?
Yeah, so like industry software.
Yeah.
I would be pretty interested in. I think there was the last one, and also the first kind of cadre of companies that came out in prop tech. By and large, I think we're more capital heavy, trying to disrupt the transaction in some form or another. That was where the bulk of the funding went. I think the next wave is, how do we make these folks that are fabrics of local society, how do we make those folks more efficient? I mean, if you've ever sat a day in the life of a real estate agent, you appreciate how hard these people work and at times how inefficient it can be.
How do you personally stay plugged into a day in the life of an agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's like one of my favorite parts of my job. I spend most of my days reviewing numbers and reviewing strategy, right? Like, I'm in product meetings, I'm in financial reviews, whatever else. That's from my home office in Seattle. And everything that comes to me tends to be pretty well curated. So I'm pretty far away from the work. Once a quarter, once every 6 months, I go into the field. And Denver last year as an example, we had a premier agent event somewhere in downtown. And I got to sit and just basically ask questions with our top performing teams and our biggest partners there. What are we doing well? What's not going well? Where can we help you more? And a couple of things always come out. One, for us to be successful as a company, those folks have to be successful. We've been, it's inspiring to see learning their stories too, right? Where you're like, wow, 10 years ago you were just getting in the business and you've been a PA alongside us and you've done really, really well for yourself. And now you're one of the top people in Denver. So that's always really inspiring. And then it's also, how do we make your lives better? And how is the product that I'm hearing about way up in the cloud actually working on the ground? And that, I think, has been an evolution for us. Like, when we were primarily just bring somebody on to Zillow, have that consumer submit their information, click a button, and off into the ether. We didn't have that same relationship with agents. It's now, hey, we're looking to help all these folks transact. And the way that we're going to help folks transact is we're going to have really, really high-performing real estate agents alongside us that we can provide technology to make their lives easier. Like, that to me is a really interesting part of the job, and it's not what I get to do day to day, so I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they know who you are, and do you feel like they're being honest with their feedback?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they know who I am, and then you don't ever know if people are claiming up a bit. But I think like,
We got to do Undercover Boss. We
yeah,
can get you,
exactly.
like,
No, but I think they do, and the reality is like these folks are really important to us, so they know that they are important to us, and they don't get that many opportunities to sit with me or some other very senior leader at the company. So I think they do give it to us straight because we're partners, right? We're not.
Yeah.
What works for us works for them and vice versa. So we have to get it right.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like you can succeed without agents?
No. We have been in this business for a long time. Real estate is some combination of online and offline. And no, we would not be successful unless we have fantastic agents on the other side of that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So back to this idea of, if you had a venture fund, what kind of companies, you mentioned looking for ones that are making the transaction more efficient. You had a front row seat to some of the largest, most recent acquisitions that Zillow's done. Follow Up Boss, Showing Time.
Yep.
Is that kind of the thought process behind those acquisitions?
Yeah. I mean, I think if I tried to simplify our strategy as simply as possible, we want to be a super app for all consumers to be able to get all things done moving. Okay. So like that's what we ultimately, are we there yet? Not yet, but we surely believe the super app is here, and then we'll just keep adding features and services over and over, right? So that is the core of the strategy today. That strategy requires great technology, it requires great partners. So unquestionably, agents, property management companies, you pick the provider on the other side in the industry, are critical to that. And then, writ large, the real estate industry being more efficient is good for real estate industry. It's good for consumers. It's good for Zillow, and it's good for real estate agents. So we've deployed, like you said, Mike, I think we've deployed over $1 billion in acquisition capital on Showing Time, Follow Up Boss, Loop. Mm-hmm. And those are really widely adopted tools, right? That's 1 million plus type agents use those. And we want all those folks to be as efficient as possible, doing the things that they're best at, not necessarily trying to wrangle a tour. Right. We want to make that more efficient so that they can be helping their customers who are our shared customers.
Yeah. What about AI? Is there one particular application of AI that you're really excited about right now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. I think we have looked at it on 3 dimensions. One is, what can we do to improve consumer experience? What can we do to improve agent and loan officer experience? Mm-hmm. And what can we do to improve employee experience? And we've got folks working on each of those. Have I found the one magic bean? Not yet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. From what I've seen in the brokerage space, in terms of AI for brokers and agents, a lot of the biggest value so far to date seems to be in the back end, kind of the back office, right? We have this process, it works like this, we can throw some AI tools at it and improve the efficiency there. It seems like you'd be able to kind of do something similar. And it sounds like we'll see.
We'll see. I think it's early days. Like I would put generative AI in the 1993 internet category right now. So I think a lot is to emerge.
Well, but how do you, you're the CFO, how do you think about investment decisions?
On AI?
Yeah.
We think about it in those 3 buckets.
Yeah. Okay.
Like we've had some form of AI, much more rudimentary in 2006 than it is today, but a culture of AI has been there since the Zestimate launched. So it wasn't like, oh my gosh, early 2023, Chat GPT is taking off. Like, what do we do?
Right.
It was like, oh, we already have a team that works on AI. Where are they focused right now? And the vast majority of that pre-generative AI was really on consumer experience.
How do you get those internal teams working on the right things?
It starts at strategy. Like all things, I think, probably start at good strategy. And I think we have a good strategy. Granted, I'm very intimately involved with constructing the strategy, so I'm a bit biased. But I think it starts with good strategy, and I think it comes back to like the kind of core principles that run the company, which are build great consumer experience and make sure that partners are there to deliver and there to become more efficient along the way. Like those are the 2. We talk in personas at the company, and the 2 customer personas we talk about most are Beth, the buyer, and Alan, the agent. So that gives you a sense for kind of when we think about, and we always start kind of first principles there, and then we work down.
Can you give an example?
Give an example of
how Beth and Alan come into the decision-making process.
Here's the way I'd answer it. The fact that these folks are on a pretty long journey. Like an agent meets a buyer from us, whatever, call it March 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Most frequently, that buyer ends up transacting 6 to 9 months later. So you're on a long journey along the way. How can we build collaborative tools along the way? Like that would be an example of one where you're like, okay, we have to make sure that this works. These collaborative tools while they're shopping work for both Beth the buyer and Alan the agent.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
No, I appreciate you sharing. So if you could clone yourself, you keep doing what you're doing at Zillow, great company, enjoying your job, but your clone got to be the CEO of any other company in the real estate space. Who would you want to have a crack at?
Yeah, I don't have a specific name at this point. I think what I would look for is a company on the cusp of going public.
Why?
I just find that time very, very interesting. And some of that is like my background is in investment banking and doing those types of transactions. But that transition from being a private company to being a public company and the rigor it takes to be a public company and getting ready and telling your story in the way that you do and going on the roadshow and then ultimately going public and having to talk to a group of shareholders that's way wider than the shareholder base or the investors you had before. Like I've watched a lot of companies go through that transition, and I think that would be really interesting. And going public as a real estate company at this moment in time is particularly interesting, just given the housing market's not exactly stellar. So how would you manage that? Like those dynamics, I think, would be pretty interesting. Yeah.
I have a feeling I know what your answer is going to be, but would you rather Zillow be a private business right now to not have all of that scrutiny?
No, I love being a public company.
Yeah, why?
Yeah. It just is, it's where the pro game is. Like you have to be a professional company. You have to get on an earnings call every 3 months and tell people what you did. That creates incredible discipline. I love that part of the process because it requires me to step out of my day-to-day internal machinations and say, I have to go explain this and what we're doing and why we're doing it to our shareholders and to my mom who listens to the call.
Right.
Is my mom going to understand this? Boy, I hope so, right? Like that type of thing. And you learn a lot about your strategy when you're trying to simplify it to that broader audience.
Right. That makes sense. All right. What's something you've learned and today that you wish you knew 5 years ago about the industry?
I think I've been, maybe it's not 5 years ago versus today, but the thing that kind of continually surprises me is there tends to be this sometimes dichotomy between what's good for consumer, what's good for agent. Not necessarily at Zillow, but writ large and sort of industry press and stuff like that. And I've continually been surprised that the reality is like folks are on the same side, right? Like if a consumer is moving, everybody is incentivized for a consumer to move. The consumer is, we are, industry participants are. That's a happy outcome for all. So this concept of that gets perpetuated at times is what's good for us versus what's good for industry. And I sit there from my seat and say, I actually think those things are way more aligned than it can be perpetuated. So that would be one where 5 years ago to now, I would have hoped that there would have been more sort of progress along that.
Progress in terms of people realizing we're all on the same team.
Just realizing, yeah. Like the real estate industry, it's like, it's people that are in local communities across the country trying to do well for themselves, for their customers, for their families. And I feel like at times it can be more contentious than it has to be.
You've been in the CFO role almost a year now. If you look back over that year, what's been your biggest challenge?
People are complicated, Mike, and I have more people this year than I did last year. I think the biggest challenge is like, how do I ensure that my entire function is rowing in the same direction? And that's easier when you're 8 people, when you're 20 people, when you're 40 people versus when you're 200 plus people. That has been the biggest and most interesting learning. But, it's one that I think about all the time.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I'd say we have a lot of really interesting growth products that we've put into market that we've invested in. I feel really good about all of them. I also want us to be quite disciplined on the operational side. So I've spent a lot of my time going out, talking to our employees and just saying, hey, we want to grow revenue. We want to do that really well. We're going to invest, but we're going to do it in a fashion that is disciplined, because ultimately it's some combination of both revenue and profits that make us successful as a public company.
So yeah, what does disciplined on the operational side mean?
Being super granular on every cost.
On every cost.
Every cost, right? So that's not that can't be done by one person. That has to be done sort of throughout the company's ethos. And it's super rewarding when you do, but it's not nearly as sexy as some of the growth product oriented stuff that we're doing, right? So it's like, hey, growth is most important, but let's be disciplined across cost as well. And for me, I like that. It's like we're maturing as a company, but it also requires people to be like, do I need to travel there this particular month? Can I get on a Zoom? Like kind of thinking about those types of decisions on a day-to-day basis. That's more operational discipline. And that's one example. There are plenty, but just to give you a sense of the things that we're asking folks to do in a different way.
Yeah. Here's kind of a tricky question, and feel free to pass if you don't want to answer. But recently I've been talking about this idea of lane assist. You know, you're driving a car, and if you kind of start swerving out of your lane, the wheel vibrates and you kind of come back. Can you think of an instance where that's been your experience at Zillow?
Where I went out of my lane or where we went out of our lane?
As an organization.
As an organization? Yeah, I mean, I think we went into Zillow Offers with the right intentions, with a lot of rigor and data and back testing and all the things, and ultimately exited it in November, I think, of 2021. So it's been a ways now, but I think it was a good learning experience of what our brand means, who we want to be when we show up to consumers. We did not like being a counterparty. Like you've heard from me a bunch already on consumers are the sun, the moon, the earth.
Right.
And us showing up and telling you, we don't think your house is that great. That was tough. So it ended up being too narrow, too volatile, too risky ultimately. But that was one where I think we are in a place right now, and we've been for the last 2 or 3 years, where we are in our lane and we are feeling really, really good because it feels like things are sort of firing on all cylinders. But in the lane that we are, which is great consumer experiences, help people transact, make real estate agents more productive.
I imagine perhaps you've looked at some of my research that I do. Is there anything out of what I publish that you find particularly annoying?
That's a leading question. Yeah, I mean, I think what we're doing on the mortgage side is quite interesting. Zillow Home Loans is a bet that matters to us. We think it's a good bet, and it's one that we think delivers more customer value over time. We think it delivers more revenue for us over time. And it's just so core to, if you're going to build a great integrated transaction experience, we want to be the lender of that, because the lender sits side by side the real estate agent, side by side the consumer. That is a very three-way relationship, and we like having that, and we think we can do so much with it, but we're going to prove it to you over time.
Okay, so that's annoying. What about what I'm doing is annoying? Not enough time?
I think not necessarily appreciating the progress that's been built and the strategic benefit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Share more data.
Okay. If you go to page blah, blah of our investor deck, no, we have been growing our origination volume 100+% pretty consistently for a while now. It's still off a small base, so it's not like we are a huge originator by any means, but it's growing. And we've been able to really start to build a good integration between our premier agents and our Zillow Home Loans loan officers. And that's been exhibited with customer adoption rates of ZHL with PA transactions at going from 6% in Q1 2023 to 15% in Q4 2023. So just to give you a sense of the ramp, that's a great data point. We think these things are quite synergistic for customer experience, and we also think are quite synergistic for our business model.
Yeah. So okay. Well, you keep doing the hard work, and we'll keep talking. Cool. So we're kind of coming up on time. I'm just curious if you had any questions for me or any final thoughts you want to throw out there.
I mean, most of all, I appreciate you having me. First time I've done this with you. Excited to be here, and then excited to be in the class too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, no, thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate you coming out, and we'll have fun in class. So yeah, that's about it. I'm Mike Del Prete. You've been listening to Context. If you want to dive into more of my annoying research, check out my website, mikedp.com. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks.